Welcome to the Comic Sauce Podcast, where we talk comics and comics culture. I am Henry Liu, and today I am joined by Porfirio Rangel. Porfirio, how's it going?
I'm doing pretty good, Henry. Happy to be here after missing a few recordings. I'm so happy to be back here.
Good to have you back. We are joined by Christian Diadamo. Christian, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm also happy for Porfirio to come back and join us because this is quite a good topic for Porfirio.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. Um, yeah, today is June 10th, 2021. Catch us on social media at Comic Sauce Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And yeah, today we're going to talk some horror. And one might ask, why is a comics podcast talking about horror? And I think we talked a little bit about this previously, but horror and comics kind of have a symbiotic relationship in a way. The big superhero craze that kicked off in the 60s really came from horror comics. So comics titles like Strange Tales, Tales of Suspense, and Journey into Mystery are kind of synonymous with Marvel superheroes now, but those are all originally horror titles, right? I mean, there's a long history of horror in comics. We won't go super deep into it now, but yeah, there definitely is a connection between horror and comics, not only way back then, but more recently too. Comics like The Walking Dead. I mean, that's a huge horror title that has become, a big phenomenon with TV and everything. And even very recently, DC has released the Conjuring comics, right? Um, yeah, Porfirio, you actually have read some of these DC Conjuring comics, right?
Yes, I did. I was able to get my hands on it and um yeah, like you said, horror and comics, they mix well, like peanut butter and jelly.
There you go. And Christian was alluding to it, but Porfirio, you are a horror connoisseur, and I think it's always fun talking horror with you because you're such a big fan, and you always have great recommendations and great takes on a lot of different horror movies that you've seen.
Mhm.
And we are definitely going to be talking about a horror movie today. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, has just come out. We all just saw it recently, and we're going to get into it. So at this point, Porfirio, maybe you can lead the way.
Yeah, for sure. Um So yeah, just to give I guess like a little bit of back review to the film before we actually talk about it is Conjuring the Three, the third part of the trilogy. Um, we follow Ed and Lorraine Warren as they go into another supernatural case, but in this case, uh, a young adult, Arnie Johnson, he is put on trial and the fleet, their defense is that he was possessed, and so this is the first time in the US that demonic possession was used for, for a defense purpose. So the movie unfolds the events of what happened and what the role that Ed and Lorraine play into proving that he was possessed and everything. Um, and obviously, like me and you, we both love our horror films and everything, so we are pretty into it. And of course, we had to have this conversation. We had to put Christian in a comfortable spot and watch horror films because he's not really a big horror fan. So, Christian, like how, like, like before we hear your experience with Hike, how was that uh like being peer pressured to say into watching this? Were you afraid or anything like that?
Hey, real quick, just a little bit of backstory. Yes, this episode is timely. You know, this movie just came out. We're going to talk about it. But the real reason why we decided to cover this movie was to sort of, I don't know, have some fun with Christian, because we knew that Christian is not a fan of these type of movies. So we thought it might be fun to sort of force it upon him. Right. So
Wow. Henry straight up says, yeah, that we peer pressured him into
yeah.
doing
So
it.
with that, yeah, what was your experience like, Christian?
So I just want to say I hate you guys. No, no. So I think with horror, like, yeah, I really don't like horror for the most part. I think, like, you know, it kind of started as a kid. Like, my sister's really into horror, my older sister, and of course she would have the movies on all the time. And growing up, that just kind of freaked me out. And so, like, I think I just kind of said no to horror at a very young age and just decided that I just did not like it. And then I think that it kind of started as me just being a scaredy cat, but it kind of grew into, I think it just kind of turned into like a movie preference almost,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak. And like, I would say like my, like now, even like as I've gotten older and I think I've gotten a little more like used to it, I would say my relationship with horror is a lot like my relationship to mayonnaise. Um, so because I don't like
Please
mayonnaise,
explain.
Yeah.
but like but like tuna salad really good, chicken salad really good, pesto mayonnaise really good. Like things that have mayo in it are you know, I can dig ranch dressing. You know, the list kind of goes on. There's a big list there. But just straight mayonnaise on a sandwich, no. I always say no mayo. I really don't like mayonnaise.
Okay.
Which is kind of like my relationship to horror. Like, I don't mind horror in things. I think like a little horror tinge to say like a good Batman comic or like Constantine, like horror in things. Like you know, I don't mind. I really like the movie Alien, and there's only really one jump scare in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if there's horror in something else, like a science fiction movie in particular, you know, I can get behind it. I like it. But straight horror, where I think the idea is really too scary, you haunted house movies, The Conjuring, and City, you know, all of those go on. I really don't like it. I think with it's really just the jump scares. Like, I really just do not like jump scares. I find them very stressful and exhausting.
Yeah,
Fair.
yeah.
That's fair.
And like, I don't like that like kind of anxious feeling when I'm watching the movie. Personally, but of course, I feel like me saying I don't like horror is also like just kind of a little too broad, you know. And there definitely is horror I like, and there definitely is horror that like I can get behind, you know. And I think there's something about a movie that keeps you up at night that that you just kind of you kind of can't help but really love in a way. Or I think also, you know, going back in time, one movie I really hated was Insidious. Because that's just jump scare crazy. Like that I was in college and a bunch of friends wanted to go see the movie, so I thought, yeah, why not just go see it? Whatever. Like, I want to go with the group. This is what we're doing. And the movie scared the crap out of all of us. Like, we were just like shouting and shaking in our seats. But that was actually like, I think, one of the best theater experiences ever, was just all of us as friends going together and being really scared. And so I think, even though I say I don't like horror and I don't like seek out a lot of horror movies, there's a bit of respect for it.
Okay.
I guess that's where I'm at now.
That's fair. So how was your experience with this film? Like,
So let's see. So I watched this. I was by myself. I did wait till it was at night. I didn't watch it like 10 a.m. with all the lights on and the windows open. I didn't wait till it was like about 9 p.m. or so.
Uh-huh.
And I did get that like anxious feeling. There were definitely a few scenes that made me like pretty anxious, I guess. And I think like I definitely like partly cover my eyes a little bit during some scenes when I knew it was gonna happen. When it's real dark, the sound's real low, and like the movie just really slows down. You see it coming, and you're like, here it is. I can't help but move my hand a little bit over.
Yeah.
And then it'd be like, oh, that's it. Okay, all right, I'm cool.
I respect your honesty, Christian.
Uh-huh.
I like that. Like a lot of people wouldn't admit to putting the hand over the eyes, but you did. I respect that.
It's almost automatic sometimes.
Was there any parts during the film where like the jump scares really got to you and you're just like, oh shit, like had that like jump moment?
Let's see. So a little bit, I think, at the beginning. I think I had to like ease myself back into the jump scare a little bit. I think like the first couple, I definitely felt that way. I think as the movie kind of went on, I got a little more comfortable with the film. But the first few, like, I definitely felt like my stress levels rising a bit,
Okay, great. Well, glad to hear that. It sounds like it wasn't that bad, and it's not going to be traumatic experience that you'll live through. So glad it went through. What about you, Henry? How was your experience like watching this film?
Yeah, my experience, it sounds like, was pretty similar to Christian's. I did watch it on opening weekend at home on HBO Max. And I also waited for nighttime. It's kind of like I wanted to do it the right way. Didn't want to wuss out, dim the lights a little bit. I did watch it alone. It was really damn scary. Bottom line, this is a scary ass movie. If you're a fan of the Conjuring series because they are scary and they're kind of notorious for being very scary, this movie does not disappoint because it is right up there with parts 1 and 2 in terms of scariness level. It's scary, no question. And yeah, there were times that I almost wanted to pause the movie and like take a break or something, maybe turn the lights up, maybe watch some cartoons or something. But I was kind of like, I'm gonna soldier through. I'm just gonna do this. And yeah, I was pretty uncomfortable in a number of spots. It was just really scary. Yeah, the anxiety level you mentioned, Christian, definitely there were some moments of like anticipation that were just like almost unbearable at times. So very scary. What else? It's funny. I think I mentioned this way back when in a previous episode where we talked about the Insidious movie. I kind of did that movie the same way. I watched it by myself in the dark. And one of the comforting factors there was my cat, Smokey. He actually like hopped in my lap for a lot of that movie. And that was sort of like, comforting. but it didn't happen this time for Conjuring 3 last week. I was kind of looking around for him, like, where's Smokey? And then at one point, like, our eyes kind of met, and it was almost like, I'm not helping you out here, bro. And he just like left the room. You're on your own, buddy. So that was disappointing. And bottom line is I was scared. And it's crazy because I've watched a lot of horror movies. Like, unlike Christian, I am a fan of the genre, and I've seen a lot of horror movies in my time. And I was legit scared from this movie. And it was there were points where in my head I was like, why am I so affected by this? I'm still scared from this shit. Why? But the simple truth of it is I was scared throughout a lot of this movie.
Mm. It's good to hear your take. I would like to talk about, as we get more into the movie, I want to hear more of what scared you. Um, but for me, I watched it also opening day that it came out on HBO Max, and I love, like you both said, I love these horror movies. I love the Conjuring films. I think they're really great. Um, but to be honest, I wasn't that scared with this movie. I I watched it at like midnight with me and my partner, and I was not scared. Um, that it was a decent movie, and yeah, I mean, like we'll get more into it when we talk about the movie, but it paid homage to the Conjuring um spirit, I will say. Um,
I agree. Yeah.
uh, so before we really dive in and talk about the movie itself, I just want to kind of get like a little bit of understanding of you guys and your relationship with this topic, the of the supernatural. Do you believe or not believe about like demons and angels and all that stuff that makes up this Conjuring universe? Henry, you want to start off?
Sure. So, do I believe in the supernatural? That's a big question, right? So, ultimately, I would say no. I don't believe in any of that stuff.
Okay.
I believe in science. I believe in facts. Um, Now, do I believe in the power of great storytelling? Of course. I'm a huge fan of genre movies and just like fandom in general. Like, if you love Freddy Krueger, or do you love Michael Myers? I get all that. That's great. But real life ghosts and evil spirits, nah, no, I don't believe that at all.
Okay. What about you, Christian?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Henry. I don't really believe in supernatural beings at all. No ghosts, no demons, nothing like that. Um, I I guess that's the short of it. Um, I think the brain. There's a lot we don't know about it, and I think there's so much that it can do to influence our personal perception as well as
Mm-hmm.
our memory.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think like there's a lot of times like you feel like you've seen something that may be a ghost, and I think part of you kind of internalizes that idea in a sense, and it's almost like you kind of did see it because you perceived yourself to see it in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my layman like chair science right there. That's my little psychological minute. Thanks for
uh,
coming to my TED talk.
Nice.
So me personally, I grew up Catholic, so I've been surrounded by these kinds of stories about like the supernatural and religious figures like God and the devil and angels and demons and ghosts and spirits and all that stuff since I was a young kid. And to be honest, it never really scared me. I've always been fascinated by the idea. Do I believe in it? I'd like to think I do. I've never had any personal experience with um encountering like interacting with a ghost or anything like that. Um, but I like to believe that these kinds of forces exist and that it's all around us and are they like as scary as like these movies make them out to be. I don't think so, but I feel like that doesn't make them any less dangerous than if they do exist. If demons do exist and all that kind of stuff. That's my take.
You know, it's really funny. The person who believes in the supernatural was not scared from this movie, but the two guys who don't believe in it at all were like scared shitless. Like, how ironic is that?
Yeah. Um. So that okay. So I guess like really a quick follow up questions before we get into the movie. Um, for both of you. Since you guys don't believe in it, does that mean you don't mind like using like the Ouija board or tarot cards or anything like that?
I've never used them before, but I would try it. Um, I actually don't really know how they work really,
Uh-huh.
but I guess I'd try it. Yeah.
Yeah. Henry?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be game too. Like I'm not like worried about, you know, some weird shit happening. That doesn't concern me. I'm totally game. It'd be like a fun thing for me to do. I haven't done it before also, but yeah, to me it'd be like a fun thing to do.
Well, screw both of you. I would never do that. Like I said, I don't fuck with that kind of stuff. I like yeah, no. Th- I don't know if you can see my face, like you describing it as like fun and all that. I'm just like, no, no, I do not fuck with that.
Sounds
um,
like
Oh
we're talking
man.
about like drugs or something, you know?
okay, and so I guess one little quick question I want to get into before we actually talk about the movie is the figures that the Conjuring universe is built around Ed and Lorraine Warren. So they're, a couple of paranormal investigators. Ed kind of like talks, he's more of like the tactical kind of person who talks with the people who are possessed, trying to figure out like he's a demonologist. He has like this like huge knowledge of demons and spirits and all that kind of stuff, how to get rid of them, how to interact with them. Whereas his wife, Loran, she is a clairvoyant, where she actually has the ability to speak with these spirits and all that kind of stuff. You know, so back in, I think, they became popular in the 70s, 80s, with the Amityville horror being like one of their more popular cases. Um, but like a lot of people who believe in stuff believe in them, but there is a bunch of non-believers who just rather coin these people as con artists who prey on the fear of people who uh, who believe in the supernatural and don't have any explanation to what's happening around their houses. I would really fast like to hear your guys' take on the Warrens. Like, do you believe in their jobs, or do you think that they were con artists?
It's a good question.
Loaded question.
I gotta think about this for a minute.
Yeah, I have a quick take on that, you know.
Mhm,
I mean, like I like I said, I don't believe in the supernatural, but I wouldn't go so far to say that they were con artists, you know. You know, my perspective is maybe similar to my perspective on religion. You know, I'm not a religious person,
mhm,
but I don't think there's like zero value in going to church. You know, I think there's a lot of value for a lot of people to go to church. You know, there's the community aspect and, um, you know, people seeking help, having someone to talk to.
mhm,
Um, you know, maybe that ultimately was the great contributions of Ed and Lorraine Warren for desperate people to have someone to go to and someone to maybe understand what they're going through. So, you know, if they were able to help people who are going through really rough times, um, maybe it wasn't like real life ghost shit, or from my perspective, definitely wasn't real life ghost shit. Clearly, these people were going through some sort of psychological terror, right? So if the Warrens were able to help them through that, then, you know, bless them for that. And no, I don't think they were con artists. Definitely, I think they served, you know, important role there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Christian.
Hmm. No, that's a very good take. I can't say that I've researched the Warrens enough to really make like um, a clear statement on whether I think they're con artists or not.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I definitely I think I'll side with Henry on that. Everything he said. Um, like it is hard to say. Although I think Arnie, unfortunately, probably like he should have gone to jail. You know, he definitely they had the correct thing if you look at it in real life. I think.
Uh-huh. Okay. My take, I think, yeah, I agree with you, Henry. I don't know if they were like con artists. Honestly, I just, as much as I believe in that kind of stuff, I don't know if like people like Lorraine exist about like being able to speak on that side, you know, and speak with spirits and all that kind of stuff. I do believe that people can have a vast knowledge of these kinds of things. Like, you know, like there's like Bigfoot experts and the Loch Ness experts and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like, you know, there's gonna be an expert about some weird thing out there, you know. Um, whether or not we understand it or not. Like you said, they could provide a sense of relief for people. And so um yeah, I don't think I wouldn't label them as con artists, but I do agree with what you said, Henry, that they provide some kind of service of relief for people who believe in this kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So yeah, let's talk the movie.
Yeah.
The
Maybe
Devil Made Me Do.
we can give the spoiler alert now, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, spoiler alert. So I guess Christian, since you know this, we kind of peer pressured you into the film, watching it. What'd you think of it?
Hmm. Let's see. I think at the end, like I thought it was all right. Like I said, it definitely got my heart rate going. Um, I definitely got pretty scared at a few parts, especially like towards the beginning. I thought the setup was really well done with that first exorcism scene. Um, with the little kid, and then I thought the courtroom setup was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to be honest, I kind of wanted to see more of that and how they would argue um, demonic possession in a court of law.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which that might end up being a completely different movie entirely.
Which a movie does exist of that. I could
Oh,
recommend to you
really?
if you ever want to watch it.
It did become a curiosity, like what actually happened, like what was like the true story behind this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think like the whole set, like it was definitely like very intriguing because I didn't even know the Warrens were real people until afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think like the more it got into the witch plot, I think the more it did actually kind of lose me. I thought the beginning was interesting, and I thought like this is a high level Satanist you have to like find and investigate. And I did think there were some, but like I thought the climax was just kind of okay. I don't know. Like I think by that point I wasn't like scared at all, unfortunately. But like
Mm-hmm.
the beginning, I thought was like great. So I guess that's my take.
Cool. Henry.
Yeah. For me, this is a pretty interesting thing about horror movies. With horror movies, unlike really any other type of movie, there's really two distinct things going on, right? There's how good is the movie, and then how scary is the movie,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with pretty much any other movie, I'll be like, okay, how good was it? And here's why I liked it. Here's why I didn't like it. But with horror, it's like two really different categories, right? How good is it and how scary is it?
Mm-hmm.
So with a horror movie like this, I definitely kind of evaluate both things. And like I said, I think this movie is very freaking scary. This is a scary movie. You want to get scared? Watch this movie. I mean, unless you're Porfirio and you're immune to it at this point, I guess. But for most people, I think you will get scared for this movie. Now, is it a good movie? Kind of like what Christian's saying. I don't think it's a good movie. like, we can maybe get into this later, but I was kind of like evaluating the whole Conjuring series, and to me, it's kind of this like downward spiral of quality. I think the first Conjuring movie is like a legit good movie that just so happens to be super fucking scary, also, right? Conjuring 2 also super scary. Conjuring 3 also super scary. But like, I think each one like kind of like goes down in quality in terms of how good a movie it is. Like this movie, in terms of just like storytelling, character development, the acting, I just don't think it's very good. It's not that compelling a story. Um, and it's almost like the movie is just like dead set on just scaring you, and like it almost like doesn't care about other stuff. Like your example of the courtroom stuff that you're kind of interested in, Christian, I was kind of interested in that too. But the movie was like, forget all that. Let's just scare the audience. I felt like this movie kind of took that approach. And side note, this is the first of the Conjuring series that James Wan did not direct. I think that is a part of the drop off in quality, also, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, bottom line for me is yes, this is a scary movie, but no, it's not a very good movie.
Mm-hmm. I hear you loud and clear. Yeah, for me, I thought it, it fell short for me on both ends. It wasn't a good horror movie, and it just wasn't a good movie. I agree with both of you that I was way more interested in hearing about the trial and all that kind of stuff, about like how the Warrens were gonna help like provide a defense for Arnie. Um, I was way more interested in that, and then when they totally threw in like the witch angle, I was totally caught off guard, and I was like, "What the hell's going on? I am so lost. I don't care for this." Like, I was just kind of like, this just seems too um, Hollywood, for
Mm-hmm.
a horror film, uh,
Yeah.
like when you know, like you, Henry, like the Conjuring films, they set up they were good. The first one, it set up like kind of like a standard for how supernatural films in the modern day should be like. And the second one, wasn't as good, but it lived up to that standard. And then this one, I feel like it just didn't live up to that standard of the first one at all. Like by introducing like the sorcery of the witch and the black magic and all this stuff, I just felt like it was ridiculous. I was just like,
Yeah.
what the hell? Like I felt robbed of a good Conjuring film.
Yeah.
I would have been way more invested in seeing like how the Warrens would have what evidence they could have provided to show that Arnie was demonically possessed and all that kind of stuff. Um,
Yeah, that ending was pretty goofy. It was almost like WandaVision. It was like a witch battle or something.
yeah,
Right? It's like
uh-huh.
it's like Wanda versus Agatha or some shit like that. Yeah, it was goofy.
Yeah. So yeah, like I just like I said, I that's what was lacking for me. I wasn't buying it. Um One thing I will say though, I think that me and Christian have talked about is that there was good chemistry between the actors who play Ed and Lorraine Warren. You know, earlier I talked about like how people have their opinions on the figures, the real life figures, but the Conjuring films, like obviously brings them into good light because it surrounds the cases between them. But the chemistry that the actors had really kind of, I feel like it's like the highlight of the Conjuring films, and there was no exception in this film. Um,
That's an interesting point because there was this kind of subplot of the love between these two people
mhm,
that like was sort of like key to their I don't know, survival or their way of like accomplishing things.
mhm,
And yeah, you're right. Like Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are good together. It's pretty obvious that they've acted with each other quite a bit before, and they have good chemistry and everything. But kind of like what I was saying before, like I wanted to see a bit more of that. That seemed kind of intriguing, but then they
mhm,
just kind of touched upon it, and the movie just focused on jump scares. They're like, okay, let's not go too deep on the character development. Let's just get back to the scary stuff, right?
mhm.
But yeah, just kind of another thing that I think they could have delved into a little more, but really they just kind of scratched the surface on.
I agree. Mhm.
Yeah. I would also agree that that was like the highlight of the film. That was the part I really liked. I think they had good banter. They did like it seems like they're like the horror couple, you know. Like Patrick Wilson, I think in particular, like he's in so many horror films. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think he was also in Insidious. I
Mhm.
think he was in Hard Candy, and I feel
Mm-hmm.
like there's an entire list of just horror films that they're both in.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so yeah, they felt like kind of right at home in a way, and so it's a nice little anchor.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like like we've been saying, like their acting was really good, and I guess that's why, Arnie and all the other characters, like I don't know, I just didn't really care for them. Like um what's his name? David, the 8-year-old boy who was possessed. I cared a little bit about him. I was interested in his kind of origin story, like how he became possessed. I thought that was a cool little scene. And how he kind of like guided Arnie about like his experience when he was possessed, and how he was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, like you hear those voices in your head and all kind of stuff. But yeah, other than Patrick's and Vera's characters, it was kind of hard to care for any of the other characters. I
I
think
agree.
that I think that's what was a downfall for me for why I didn't care for this film.
Yeah, I'm with you. For the most part, I find it I found it difficult to care a whole lot about the characters in this movie, and um yeah, it doesn't matter what kind of movie it is. If you don't care about the characters, it's hard to connect with the
Hmm.
story much at all, right? So yeah, I'm with you.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Hey, real quick take. I'm talking a lot about how I do think this movie is scary, but I don't think it's very good. Yeah, the whole time I was watching this movie, I felt like I was in an amusement park. Like I was on a horror ride,
Uh-huh.
and then every few minutes there'd be like something that jumped out, you know, and like it was just kind of an empty experience, like there's really not a whole lot of story to care about. The characters, like we were saying, you don't really care about them so much. And you just get these moments of terror, you know, like a scary clown jumping out of a box, and then the ride goes on a little bit more, and you see these ghosts flying around, and that's really what I felt like. I felt like I was on amusement on an amusement park ride. And
Mhm.
yeah, like at the end, I just felt kind of empty. I was like, okay, I did get those visceral, scary thrills, but like there was no quality there. I was just like, okay, like I'm done with the ride. I'm just gonna go home now. That's just kind of an empty feeling at the end.
Yeah, that's exactly kind of yeah how I felt with this film. Like I was very excited for it, because like I said, I love these films, but by the end, I was just kind of like, okay, next.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So, I myself wouldn't recommend this movie. Like I said a number of times, I don't think it's a good movie, but there might be some people who watch these movies just to get scared, and like that's it. So maybe for that portion of the population, maybe this is a recommendation to you. Because
Mm-hmm.
I think legitimately most people will get scared in a lot of parts in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can talk about that a little bit, like the scariest moments. I mean, I don't know if you have any, Porfirio, but I think Christian and I certainly have some, right? Yeah, Christian, do you
Mhm.
have some moments that
Like,
particularly scared you?
let's see. I think the big moment was the part where in the dog kennel, right before Arnie stabs that guy,
Mm-hmm.
um, when he's when they're partying and he just starts like really tripping out, and like the scenery starts changing and gets all dark. He's like, it's like a very disorienting scene. I thought that was really good. I think also the other part that kind of got me um was the very beginning with the blood shower. Um,
Mm.
I think the blood shower itself wasn't like scary, like a face popping out at you, but I will say that was something like I did not expect that. Like I expected the face, but got the shower in a way, and I had like I said, like I get real nervous and anxious, and I had to like kind of ease myself in it over the course of the movie. So also since this was the first one, it also stuck out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then there was like a part with the waterbed. Like, what do you guys think of that scene, the waterbed
Oh,
scare?
Yeah, the waterbed definitely I feel like got to me. I mean, like, cause I mean, you see some of these scenes in the trailer when they try to hype it up, but even then, like, just the way like the demon was toying with David, um, I thought was still creepy, especially since it was on a waterbed.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I forgot about that. That waterbed scene was pretty damn scary. Yeah, the way you could see like the imprint of the demon's face inside the bed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. That was kind of cool. And yeah, Christian, you definitely named my scariest moment also, the moment in the dog kennel. Man. So a signature thing of the Conjuring series is the use of darkness, and that scene definitely used darkness effectively. So the buildup is good. Like Christian, you're saying how Arnie's becoming like completely discombobulated. He's like losing it, right? And you just know like some crazy shit's gonna go down. And then there's that moment where you have his point of view, right? You have Arnie's point of view, and he's just looking at like a dark corner. Again, this is classic Conjuring shit, right? The dark stuff, like what you don't see, is freaking scary, right? You don't see anything, you just see like darkness, and then you see his buddy, like in like some weird demonic form, just like charge right at him. So like he's coming right at you. You have Arnie's point of view, so this demon is like coming right at you, and it is fucking scary. yeah, that was definitely the scariest thing that happened to me in this movie. And like when that happened, like I like gasped and I had to like catch my breath, you know.
Uh-huh.
Really terrifying. Um a real quick note on the beginning. Um the very beginning where you said you were scared, Christian, that part didn't get to me too much. This is kind of funny. Um Normally stuff with kids and like possession of kids, like that is generally pretty scary to me. Um but this time around it didn't get to me too much. Um yeah, there's the blood shower, and then you see the actual possession of this 8-year-old boy, right? Where he's like doing all this weird contortionist stuff, right? And he hears
Mhm.
joints popping and stuff. Yeah, that didn't get to me too much. And I was thinking, like, I've spent like the last year plus with a young child who has his who has had his moments of possession, like freakouts and tantrums. So like when I was watching this movie, I'm like, ah, this is nothing. Like I've dealt with this. I'm not scared at all. No big deal, right? Um, it's when the creepy stuff started happening. That's when I started to get scared. So I mentioned like the kennel scene where there's like the demon coming out of the darkness, but earlier, like just before that, there's a scene where you see like a cereal box move, like just very slightly, right? Yeah, it's Arnie, right? He's just hanging out. I think he's gonna get some food. It's like
Mhm.
daytime, right?
Mhm.
So you shouldn't be scared, but you see like the cereal box just move just a little bit, right? Oh, that scared the hell out of me, man. That got me. And that
Yeah,
was like,
same.
oh shit, here we go. And then sure enough, there's like a total jump scare that follows that, right? Because you find it turns out it's just like a mouse or something that moved the cereal box. Again, this is like classic Conjuring shit too, where it's like a misdirect. So you're freaked out from this cereal box, and it's like building your anticipation and your anxiety. And then you see the mouse. It's like, okay, oh, it was just a mouse. It was nothing. And then boom, it like hits you with this crazy jump scare where like the demon, or not the demon, the like the sorceress is like
Uh-huh.
standing right behind him, right? So that definitely got me. Yeah, this movie is full of scares, no question. It got me on a number of occasions.
Mhm. I think for me, the part that kind of intrigued me, or even like, build up my adrenaline, wasn't a jump scare. I think it was more like when Lorraine makes contact with like a body, and the witch like also like recognizes that like they can sense each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like um kind of like that Star Wars like Rey and Kylo kind of thing, where they have that
Oh yeah,
connection
right.
of sensing each other and knowing where each other are. And I was just like, oh shit, that's crazy, because I think like, I think by that point, like the witch recognizes the how dangerous Lorraine can be with her, and then starts targeting her and her
Mm.
family by placing the last ritual thing in the vase of the flowers and stuff. And but just like that initial connection that's made between the two, I was just like, oh man, like now there's like a timestamp that things are gonna get serious now.
Yeah, yeah,
There's more at stake now.
right.
Um, but so yeah, so Henry, since you watched the other Conjuring films, where does this one kind of land compared to the other ones?
Yeah, kind of like what I was saying earlier. This is definitely like the worst of the trilogy. You know, just just like quality wise, you can do a whole lot better watching one or two, especially one. Yeah, kind of like what you're saying, Porfirio. I think one is just like it's a solid, good movie, and you will get scared too.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's really it's I just go back to that amusement park ride analogy. Um, it's not so much a movie experience as it is a theme park ride experience. And for as a movie review, definitely not a recommendation. But for like, I guess, a thrill ride, you just want to get scared, you want to get the visceral thrills of watching horror. um, Maybe if that's all you're in it for, maybe I'll give it a recommendation on that level.
Great. What about you, Christian? Has this um influenced you to watch the other Conjuring films or explore other horror films?
Hell no. um, well, like, because the other two, it's always like they're good and they're really scary. It's like, oh man, like this is supposed to be the worst one. But you said it wasn't that scary, and it was like, oh man, this is like there's some scenes that are like, it's too stressful. So probably not. I think actually, with quarantine over the year, I've like started to get like into horror with like some movies, but like the movies I've been watching were like The Shining and like Psycho, like
Mm,
older, much older movies that
like
I
more
that I
like
can like handle.
thriller kind of horror
I
films.
guess so. I think thriller definitely seems to be a little more, I guess, up my alley. Thriller, and of course, I love science fiction.
Hmm.
Um, but I think with these specific movies, specific haunted house meant to scare you 100%. Lots of jump scares loaded with it. Um, Probably not. I was a little invested in I think there were some like real life aspects of the movie that I when I looked up I got more interested in it. Um, and so, but other than that, not much. Although I did, like the Warrens in this movie, which I guess. Okay, so I have a question for you guys. So,
Okay.
how much of like the other two Conjuring movies or Annabelle carry into this movie? Like, is
Um,
this movie really like a trilogy, or does this feel like more of a spin-off to you guys?
that's a good question. Yeah, I think for me, it doesn't feel like part of like the trilogy for The Conjuring. For me, it feels like more of a spin-off of one of the Warren cases, you know. Um, just because I like like how me and Henry been saying, like the first and second one, there's obviously a connection with the Warrens and all that stuff, and then this third one just like it just felt like a lackluster. Um, but yeah, I guess that's my take. That it just kind of feels like a spin-off than completing a trilogy within the Conjuring films.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's more of a spin-off than a continuation of this series. And the reason I say that is you really don't need to see Conjuring 1 or 2 to like understand what's going on with this
Mm-hmm.
one. It's pretty much standalone. Um yeah, definitely there's no required prerequisite viewing here. That said, I think there are some fun little callbacks in this movie. We are a fandom related podcast, and it's always fun to like, you know, check for little Easter eggs. Like that's just a thing now, like superhero movies definitely, but like so many aspects of pop culture like to do this sort of thing now. And this horror movie is no exception. There are little Conjuring Easter eggs. I was
Mm-hmm.
definitely like looking for stuff, and there wasn't a lot, but there was some. uh, like at the end is kind of the most obvious, right? At the Warrens' house, they have like this archive of supernatural stuff, right? So you actually see the Annabelle doll, you see the painting of the nun, you
Mhm.
know. Um, and here's kind of a cool one. There is a scene, another pretty scary scene in this movie where Lorraine goes into the basement of a house, and definitely one of those oh shit moments, right? Here we go again. She's descending into darkness, you know, shit's gonna go down. But it's kind of a callback to the Conjuring 1, where there is a similar scene where Lorraine goes into the basement of a house, and you know some crazy shit's gonna happen. And I think they actually kind of acknowledged it, like Lorraine actually kind of has this reaction of like, yeah, like here we go again, right? So kind of cool little fan moment. I like the fact that they didn't like beat you over the head with it, but they still acknowledged the past movies, so kind of
Hmm.
fun.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh,
Oh, one other thing
They did have a
too.
really cool house.
There you go. Their lawyer, right? I think the lawyer wanted them to convince her
oh yeah.
about supernatural stuff, and they were kind of like, oh, like you just wait. And they totally convinced her, right? And again, they kind of acknowledged like the past movies.
Mhm. I wish they showed that. Like what
Yeah,
happened.
yeah, they didn't show that, right? They just kind
Uh-huh.
of cut to a reaction later.
Uh-huh.
That would have been kind of fun to see her actually get freaked out.
Yeah, and you know, obviously, yeah, they cut to her reaction just to make like to have like that little comedic moment to
Mm-hmm.
lighten up the energy of the room.
Yeah,
But I still wish, yeah, they had showed what it was that they showed her to make her believe, you know,
yeah,
because you know I feel like
Mhm.
you know because I felt like that was like the premise of the whole movie. It was to like make you believe in demonic possession,
right.
and they didn't even show that with the lawyer. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like
Yeah,
yeah, I just felt like I was robbed in that scene.
Mhm.
feel you.
Yeah, there was something I thought with like the evidence within the movie that like made me kind of question, because it does kind of have to fall in real life, and of course in real life Arnie gets sentenced to prison and spends 5 years in prison. But I kept thinking, like at the end of the movie, like like couldn't they just like have like all those people who were with Arnie when he was like floating in the air and contorting as like witnesses, as well as like show them the room that all the glass broke, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like I kept wondering like how like it feels like they have a defense with all this evidence of like actual demonic possession, where they could say like this is where he was being possessed. Here's the um here's where the witch was casting her spell. Here's what happened. Like here's like a few witnesses in that room at the time who can testify. So like I kept going back to the court angle throughout like the movie
Mm-hmm.
and through
Yeah.
the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a solid point. Although I guess within the context of the movie, I think what we're seeing is kind of in question whether it's actually happening or it's happening like psychologically, like within the
Hmm.
mind of the possessed or something.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's hard to say. The lines are kind of blurred, right? But if there is a counter argument to what you're saying, it's maybe some of this stuff is maybe wasn't really seen, or the people who witnessed it, maybe they didn't actually see it. Maybe it was in their head. Who knows, right?
Hmm.
Oh, that is a good point.
Um.
Because yeah, they did cut to that a lot in the film, where like you'd think one thing would be happening, of course, like
Yeah.
with the big disorienting scene. So, I
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
actually didn't approach that angle.
Uh-huh. I was reading online like some differences, with the real life case versus the movie. Um Apparently like Ed claims that Arnie was possessed with I think like 43 demons at the same time.
Jeez.
Um which again like goes back to that conversation we were having earlier about like is are they con artists or how does he know this?
43. Wow.
Yeah,
That's
43.
nuts.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a big difference. I guess another big thing was that David has a brother named Carl who's never I don't think he's in the movie at all, but for good reason. Carl, he he doesn't like the Warrens in real life. He thinks that the Warrens used his brother and Arnie to kind of like draw fame to their to their jobs, and everything,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that they made money from it, and yeah, so yeah, Carl, which is David's brother, just he just doesn't like the Warrens at all.
Interesting.
And then
Yeah.
one of the last things that happened was I guess like when they like when the lawyer says that like oh yeah like demonic possession for defense and during the when the judge asks how do you plead or whatever, I guess like the judge in real life like laughed it off and was just like I'm not going to take this seriously or anything like that.
Mm, interesting.
Mhm. Yeah, it's
um
something that seemed to play out very differently in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Of
yeah,
course.
of course, because it's a movie, we got to make this more interesting.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
At a
Mhm.
witch.
Mhm.
Yeah, so before we do our readings, any final thoughts that you guys have or anything?
Yeah, you mentioned the witch thing. We've talked about it some already, but um, again, that whole thing was pretty silly and also kind of not consistent with what worked for the first two Conjuring movies.
Mm-hmm.
So the first two Conjuring movies were really rooted in this supernatural ghost story stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I think inherently a ghost story is scary because we as normal people, we have no defense against a ghost. If you're
Mm-hmm.
haunted by a ghost, there's not a whole lot you can do except go to people like Lorraine and Ed Warren to like take care of shit, right? We can't do anything. You can't outrun a ghost, right? But in this movie, they kind of change that. They move it to like this satanic cult. And, we've been talking about how the ending is pretty stupid. And this was a big part of it, like it became like just a real life person, battling Lorraine, right? And I think there's a reason why the ending of this movie isn't scary at all. It's not ghosts. It's like weird, like magician stuff. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, but it doesn't. You lose the ghost story aspect of it, and like I said, inherently that's scary. So when you lose that, it just becomes a lot less scary. And to be honest, pretty silly. Pretty silly ending to the movie. So yeah, I was thinking too about like iconic moments from the first two movies. There was no like real iconic moment in this one, right? Like The Conjuring 2, kind of like what we've been saying, it's not quite like the the quality movie Conjuring 1 is, but you know what? It has the nun in it. And the nun in that movie is like so freaking scary. I mean, I don't even remember The Conjuring 2 that much, but I remember the nun, and I remember
Mhm.
being so scared from the moments that the nun appeared. And then the first Conjuring movie, I mean, there are a lot of scary moments, but there's that music box, like that is like stuck in my head. That freaky music box, and like all the scary moments involving that. So with this movie, there really isn't like that signature thing, right? So yeah, I have a feeling like pretty soon, like I'm gonna forget about this movie and like all the little details we've been talking about. There
Mhm.
really isn't like that one iconic thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think this movie maybe could have had potential if they, this whole new angle about like the witch and everything, if they just did it right, like I
Yeah.
feel like, like for example, like American Horror Story does good by including like the Salem witch trials, or if they're gonna go that satanic route, like how you're saying, Christian, about like how there's the Church of Satan and all that kind of stuff, like just make it like believable and make it make sense instead of just adding it for horror's sake or whatever, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, one thing about I guess like the Satanists in the movie, um, is that I don't think it's ever was it ever really explained why she was going after that family. Like I thought, like wasn't it like her dad said it was just they want to cause chaos and that's it.
I think, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think like the she needed like three kinds of sacrifices. She needed like something like of innocence, of something, and of like determination or something like that. And
Oh
that's what
yeah, it was
she,
like the innocent, the lover, and something else. Yeah.
yeah. And so she got that from David, the innocence. She got that from Jessica something, and then she was able to get that with Ed. And but yeah, I don't didn't go into detail to like how the witch discovers the family or anything like that, or um when she placed the little token or whatever. Um so like I wish they explained that a little bit more. I think that would have been made the movie a little bit more like, okay, I understand it, but it was just kind of just like it happened, like go with it.
Uh, it's funny, like watching this, I thought, oh, this is the that angle was part of a previous movie, and that they were already introduced. Because they mentioned that this is a high level Satanist. This is really powerful, and I thought, oh,
Right.
maybe this cult has been in a different movie, and then maybe they've like fleshed this out a little more. Um, but I guess looking back on it, one reason they might have went with that angle, um, is that well, this movie does take place in the 1980s. I think it's 1981 is when this murder happened, and of course, 80s nostalgia is really big. This movie doesn't. Thankfully, this movie doesn't like play in too heavily into 80s nostalgia and feel like a rip off of like Stranger Things or anything.
Uh-huh.
But I will. But the 80s was the big time of the Satanic Panic, and so I wonder if that played a part in why they went the route that they did for this movie.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Was that it was like a real kind of like style, like a little more stylized version, you know?
Mm-hmm. It makes sense. So are you guys ready to should we give our reviews?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so just to uh re-clarify, a one is being like total shits, like no recommendation whatsoever. And then five being like very great, that you highly recommended and it was really good. Um Christian, you want to start off since we you were the one peer pressured into watching this film?
I hate you guys out of 5. No, I'd say it's about. I'd probably give it about a 2. I think out of 5. Definitely some good scares. Definitely got me a few times. And like there were definitely some story moments that got me like intrigued, especially like I said, like really great beginning for me, but like it kind of falls off at the end. So 2 out of 5.
Okay. Henry?
Yeah, I'm gonna go 2 out of 5 also. Pretty much went in depth on my reasoning, but scary movie, yes. Good movie? No. Yeah, I kind of wish this is a better movie that we forced upon Christian because like to put him through this experience was not that cool in the first place, and then to have it be like not that great of a movie was like extra shitty. That said, I will go back to what I said earlier. If you're looking to be scared and like nothing else, maybe you want to check this out. Like, let's say you saw the first 2 Conjuring movies and you got the pants scared out of you, off of you, and you want the pants scared off of you again. And that's it. You don't care about stories and characters and whatnot. Maybe you want to check out The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. Beyond that, I can't really think of a recommendation for this movie or a reason to watch it.
Oh.
Not a great flick. 2 out of 5.
And so the film, it's a straight 2 out of 5. So I also give it a 2 out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like the the storyline was horrible. The whole witch thing was just bad. Um, it was the weak link in the whole Conjuring trilogy. But if you're looking for like a supernatural movie to watch and you have nothing else, like sure you can watch it and you'll probably enjoy it, have a good like scare or two. Um, yeah, just to get to get that adrenaline from like a good horror film, but just be prepared. It's not going to be a good movie that doesn't make sense, and you're just like, what the hell is going on? um, but yeah, that's my take. A 2 out of 5.
Cool. We're all kind of down on this movie, and I kind of feel like you know just to end would be ending on like a negative note. And especially you, Porfirio, you're such a big horror fan. Maybe we can leave with like some horror movie recommendations, like actually good horror movies. Do you have any picks for
Right
us
now,
over
right now,
there?
A Quiet Place Part 2.
There you go.
Oh yeah.
That one
This
was
is
really
a
good.
new release.
It's a new release. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I don't think it helps out that I watch both these films on the same day.
Oh,
Oh what?
interesting. Double header.
Yeah, so I watched A Quiet Place Part 2 in theaters earlier that day, and like I said, it was good. I enjoyed it. And then I came home and I was I will say I was really excited to watch Conjuring because I love the films, I love this universe and everything, but I was just yeah, pretty disappointed with how the finished product came out to be.
Gotcha. I have a recommendation also. I don't watch a ton of horror movies, but I just so happened to watch one not long ago called Midsummer. And I highly recommend this movie. It is really cool, super trippy and psychedelic, and pretty unique too. It's a horror movie. It's definitely a horror movie, but it takes place pretty much entirely in broad daylight. So a unique horror movie, and yeah, a big 180 from Conjuring 3 because um, like the characters in Midsummer, you really get to know a lot of characters in this movie, and there's actually like character development, and you kind of care what happens to these characters, and it's an interesting ride, like Whereas Conjuring 3, you feel like you're at a haunted mansion and you have kind of an empty feeling at the end. At the end of Midsummer, you feel like you've really like experienced something, right? You've gone through something. So I really highly recommend that one.
Henry, have you ever watched the movie Hereditary?
No, but that is definitely on my list. I know it's the same director
I was gonna say that,
as
yeah.
Midsummer. Yeah.
Mhm.
I do intend to check that one out too.
Okay.
Oh,
Christian,
I
do you
also
have
have
any
a
rec?
I got a movie that actually scared the crap out of me. So like I didn't actually expect this movie to, because I wouldn't really call this a horror movie, but I found it extremely frightening. It's a classic. It's called Eyes Wide Shut. So I'm a big Stanley Kubrick fan, and so I actually didn't watch this until recently, and it's of course got that Kubrick slowness to it. Of course, it's definitely more of a thriller. That is like very heavy on romance, of course. Um, but I think it's the way the movie is paced out. Like scared the crap out of me. I think this might be a mild spoiler. If you haven't seen Eyes Wide Shut, then just skip ahead a couple minutes. But the first half of the movie is Tom Cruise kind of looking to get into trouble, and then of course he kind of finds his way into that very iconic scene at the mansion. And then the second half of the movie is just a series of him going to people trying to figure out what he went through and what happened, and it's just people kind of telling him to look the other way. The second half of the movie, because he's seen too much, and some things happen to people around him, and they kind of tell him that something else happens, and so the movie's kind of this like it's like this like Orwellian type of horror where there's some entity above Tom Cruise, where he's pretty rich in the movie. Like he's pretty much on the upper crust, but there's an entirely different level of like pretty much the Illuminati is I think what a lot of people allude to. That tell him that you've seen too much, but what you've seen actually didn't happen. And so I found it very disorienting as a viewer, because as a viewer you don't know what happened and you don't know how to fully internalize it. And of course there's a myth going around. I don't believe this, but that Stanley Kubrick died because of that movie, because in the movie he said too much with the film, and that there's some sort of like extra 14 minutes that's been cut from the film that we haven't seen that was too much to show. I don't believe that. I think that it's just internet rumors, but it does add another kind of level to the movie, another level of mysticism in a way, where the movie's just so disorienting that you see it and like it's not scary, but it keeps you up at night, you know? So, but that's also me. I'm very easily scared. But that's my recommendation.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good one. I enjoyed Eyes Wide Shut also, and yeah, I don't know if you could categorize it as a horror movie, but it's definitely a thriller. It's definitely eerie. It has scary elements to it for sure. So cool. Yeah. I think the consensus is maybe you want to steer clear of the cheap thrills of Conjuring 3 and maybe go for the quality thrills of A Quiet Place 2, Midsummer, or Eyes Wide Shut. And with that, we can wrap up the episode. This is Farewell from Porfirio, Henry, and Christian.